You're listening to the Trailblazers podcast, where we will explore the stories of successful Black professionals. Join us as we highlight the knowledge, resources, and tools of these accomplished trailblazers to help provide the know-how, confidence, and motivation you need to blaze your trail. And now, here's your host, Stephen Hart.
What's up, Blazer Nation? Listen up. I don't know if you guys ever met somebody, right, in your life that's seen more and maybe even believe more for your life and what you're doing right now than you could even see for you. Crazy, right? Sometimes we need someone who believes in us until our own belief in what we're doing kicks in. And I don't know if that sort of thing has ever happened to you. If not, and it's just me, that's cool because it worked out, right? It worked for me on this podcast, and in turn, it's worked for you as a consumer of this content. And so there's this guy, right? There's this guy that I brought on as a guest back on episode 16, way back in May of 2016. Guy's name is Sean Dove. And Sean is the CEO of an initiative that spun off into this amazing organization called the Campaign for Black Male Achievement. Turns out this is a skill and truly a blessing that Sean possesses, where he is able to see more in you than you see in yourself. And as it turns out, this is a gift. Sean has done the same for thousands of men and women around the country for decades now. He's able to step in and interrupt your story and help you see things that could be so much better for you and for others by way of the work that you are doing. And so, Sean painted this picture for me, some with his words, some with his monetary support. The Campaign for Black Male Achievement has been our sole sponsoring partner of this podcast over the past 2 years. But even beyond that, he's also supported us by bringing several amazing guests, past featured guests on the podcast. And then also he's educated me. He's taught me so much by way of bringing me to events in Louisville, Kentucky, and Baltimore, Maryland, and just recently to celebrate with them at their 10th anniversary gala in New York City. And you guys hear me talk about CBMA at the beginning of every episode, and as many ads do, some of you connect to it and it's now ingrained, and some of you glance over it. And so I wanted this episode to be a short episode. It's a solo episode today, but I wanted to bring CBMA to the forefront. And I want you guys to stay tuned. I'm going to take 20 minutes of your time today. That's it. But this is really important. So I want you to tune in, because over the past 10 years, Sean has worked tirelessly to bring a dream to reality, right? Many of you have ideas that, we hope one day we're going to be able to do, but many of us, we never seem to have the time or the money. And you guys can all relate, I'm sure. We'll all be rich if we had the ability to cash in on an idea without doing the work, right? But like many entrepreneurs that we featured just recently in our Trailblazer Entrepreneur Series, Sean is somebody with a big vision and who takes tremendous action. I don't know anyone that travels like him. I don't know anyone that reads like him. I don't know anyone that can connect people like him. He's an amazing guy. But, back some 10 years ago, Sean sought to connect in some way with a guy you might have heard of called George Soros and his organization, the Open Society Foundations. And I know of George Soros. I had a past life as a currency trader, and George Soros is well known around the world as one of the most successful currency traders, forex traders that ever lived. Back in the early 90s, he's known to have, been on the side of a trade that just about broke the Bank of England. And he made, the folk tale is that he made $1 billion in a day, right? But George Soros is a Hungarian American, mid-80s now, much older guy, but he has made tens of billions, and he's donated, quite a number, several $1 billion to different civil initiatives that help to reduce poverty and increase transparency, right, on hot button issues. But among the many initiatives that Soros has made commitments to, among them include the creation of the Campaign for Black Male Achievement some 10 years ago. And so From that, CBMA has moved forward and been able to, over the past decade, leverage more than $300 million towards the Black male achievement field and movement. And that's just amazing to me, right? But you might ask, Stephen, what does that mean, right? What exactly does that mean? And what does it mean for me? And so here's the thing. There's cities all around the country where Black men and boys, they're being forgotten, they're being neglected, abused, killed, imprisoned, right? And the problem here is that we see this on the news, we see it in the media, but many of us who consume this podcast content, you're well off. You're in the middle class, you're in the upper class, you're professionals in corporate America, you're well educated, you're entrepreneurs, basically living a good life. And you own your own home, your kids go into good schools. So it's easy to kind of fall in this bubble of thinking that generally speaking, we're okay, right? But that's not the case. We aren't okay. And we can't ignore this. We simply cannot ignore that there are folks out there that need us. There are Black men and boys out there who need us. And this podcast sponsor, the Campaign for Black Male Achievement, is headed by a CEO that is not forgetting this fact. Sean often says that there's no cavalry coming to save the day. We are the iconic leaders that we've been waiting for, right? Creators of the change we're seeking to see. CBMA is in many ways that resource. They're helping those leaders, the real ones that no one hears about in mainstream media, the ones that are on the ground doing the work without recognition. People like Chris Chapman in Oakland, folks like Monique Liston in Milwaukee. And, Monique actually shared a thought of how do we protect and respect and fulfill the dignity of Black men, right? And she's been preaching this message across her city of how important the dignity of Black men is, right? And what does it look like? And how do we protect it? And how do we show ourselves our deep-seated biases and connections to racism and sexism and homophobia by the way that we treat the Black males in our communities? And so this is what CBMA is doing, right? In many ways, they're the organization that is providing support to thousands of organizations and leaders and initiatives. Folks like Monique, folks like Chris, folks like myself and this podcast, the Trailblazers podcast. CBMA is investing in leaders like us, is connecting us as leaders, is promoting what's working within the Black male achievement field and finding ways to sustain what's working. And so, yes, I'm doing today's episode to shine a light on CBMA, but I'm also wanting to let you know that CBMA needs you. We need more of you to be aware, to begin to join in this movement. We need you to understand your role and your talent and skill and ability that can be brought to this needed movement, because together we need to create a space for our Black youth. We need you to also uplift the young leaders who are doing so much of this work on their own. We need you guys to join in this, right? This is our revolution. We can't change this narrative if we're all not aware and literate about what's happened and what's happening and how we can work together to enact real change. I recently had the pleasure of seeing Mr. Les Brown, probably one of the iconic motivational speakers of our time. I heard him speak live, and he spoke of the need for those who will come into our lives and interrupt our story. Sean Dove has interrupted my story. Sean saw the ability for Trailblazers as a podcast to not only provide you and I stories of other successful Black professionals to provide us motivation and inspiration to keep pushing, but my interaction face to face with some of the leaders I just shared with you, with some of the young men who this organization and its members have been able to impact, young Black men and boys in cities around the country like Baltimore and Detroit and Oakland and Louisville and New York, and so many other places where our young Black brothers aren't being given a shot, right? Instead, they're being shot. They're being left behind. They're being told, not as adults, but at the earliest of ages, that they aren't worthy. I watched a young man in Louisville, Kentucky, a year ago share that from as early as the second grade, teachers told him not to even worry about learning to read because he's going to be in prison in a few years, right? And that hurts. That hurts to my core because I had a second grader last year, right? So I look at that like if somebody was pouring that kind of poison into my own child. And that's what we need to realize, right? Like we need to understand what's really at risk here, right? Research studies too. This is not just fluff and pie in the sky. Research studies right now are showing in 2018 that the widest racial gap right now exists between black boys and white boys, right? So Sean is right. Sean saw the potential for these stories. You know, Trailblazers now has featured 140 plus stories of successful black professionals, be it business owners, leaders, entrepreneurs, creatives. And representation matters, right? Representation matters for us. It's presenting a path to shift this narrative. And we need to continue to find even more ways to leapfrog the systems in place today to close that gap. And here's the thing. A couple thousand people will listen to this episode. Most of you, you're going to say, yeah, Stephen, we need to do something. But within 30 minutes of you stopping this episode, you're going to be consumed by the noise and the busy and the comforts of your life. I'm not saying that to point fingers, right? In many ways, I'm consumed by the noise too. It's hard to, one, commit enough time to make sense of the need and understand the urgency of this. And also, two, be willing to sacrifice time that you really already don't have enough of, right? But that is the problem, right? I wish I could do more. I wish I could give more time right now. I'm consumed by so many commitments myself. But here's the thing. These black men and boys, they don't have that time either. They're in a system that doesn't care about them. And they're running out of time. And so we have to make the time. We have to sacrifice and make the time. That change isn't going to happen. And this black male achievement movement won't grow by itself, right? So Sean and everyone connected to this movement and this field, they need more of us. They need you and I. They need a lot of other people in the media. So, you know, all my journalists, all my podcast buddies, bloggers who are listening right now, we need you. We need you to get behind Sean Dove, behind CBMA, behind local organizations working to advance the achievement of black men and boys. And let's be clear, this is not just for us, by us, right? The achievement of black men impact everyone. So here's my call to action today. I want you to make a commitment right now to join the campaign for Black Male Achievement. Become a member today. I want you to hop on over to blackmaleachievement.org/join. That website address is blackmaleachievement.org/join. I want you to commit that you're going to allow me to interrupt your story, right? And your legacy. And I want you to make a commitment to helping our fellow black men and boys to rise, right? Yes, it's going to require your sacrifice. You know, it's going to require time and it's going to require some of your energy. But if we can work together, I think it's going to help. I think the young men counting on you and I right now are going to appreciate that, you know, we recognize that they are running out of time, right? That their time is about to be up because the system is not working for them. And so they need us. They need us more than ever right now. So put on your iPhone, sacrifice even 30 minutes, an hour of time that you'd have spent scrolling your IG feed. Figure out what local organizations are in your community that's trying to serve black men and boys. Reach out and join CBMA, join the movement, right? And Sean and his organization can point you to, you know, their sister, the organizations that are on the ground that are doing the work, right? CBMA can point you in the right direction to help you to help those local leaders, right? So, Sean, the entire team at CBMA, if you're listening, I want to thank you for the work that you're doing. And for those in our Blazer Nation, if you appreciate this episode, I want you to tweet up right now. I want you to share a post, share IG story about CBMA. I want you to use the hashtag CBMA Next to let us know that you appreciate the work that Sean and his team are doing. And again, I want you to hop on over right now to join the movement. You can do so at blackmaleachievement.org/join. And I want you to go out and have a blessed and productive and profitable week. God bless. Well, that's it for today. Thanks again for listening to this episode of the Trailblazers podcast. I'll be posting links to all of today's book recommendations and links mentioned on our show notes page at tbpod.com. If today was your first time listening to the Trailblazers podcast, I just want to extend a warm Trailblazers welcome to you. We're so happy to have you here, and we encourage you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button in your favorite podcast app. Go ahead and browse through some of our past episodes to keep the knowledge flowing. If you're a fan of the podcast and today's content, and you're maybe already subscribed to the podcast, please continue to share and invite your friends, your family, your colleagues to listen to an episode that you think might impact them most. We believe that someone listening to these inspiring stories will be moved to make significant changes that will have generational impact for many others, both now and well into the future. Don't miss next week's episode. New episodes are released each and every Monday by about 5 a.m. Eastern. Trailblazers, jump off this podcast today. Go find a way to rise above, go way beyond, and keep blazing your trail. Cheers.